1959 stands as one of the most devastating years in Hollywood history. While we remember the glorious triumphs like Ben-Hur that swept the Academy Awards, behind the scenes, studio executives were losing sleep as production after production hemorrhaged money. These weren't just minor disappointments, they were catastrophic financial failures that ended careers, closed studio departments, and permanently altered how movies would be made. What's truly fascinating is how many of these box office bombs featured Hollywood's biggest stars, most respected directors, and enormous budgets, yet still managed to fail spectacularly. From forgotten war dramas to biblical epics and even a Disney animated classic, these 13 films represent the costliest mistakes that shook Hollywood to its core. In a time when television was stealing audiences away from theaters, studios gambled with increasingly expensive productions, hoping to lure viewers back with spectacle and star power. Instead, they created a perfect storm of financial disaster. Let's journey through the wreckage of 1959's biggest flops, starting with the least remembered and working our way to the most infamous box office catastrophes that somehow managed to become beloved classics despite their initial failures. When Robert Mitchum signed on to star in The Angry Hills, a World War II drama set in Nazi-occupied Greece, everyone expected a hit. Mitchum was box office gold, and war films reliably drew audiences. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, everything. The production was plagued with problems from the start. Filming on location in Greece proved challenging, with language barriers, logistical nightmares, and a script that underwent countless rewrites. The story, based on Leon Uris's novel about an American correspondent caught up in the Greek resistance, should have been compelling. Instead, it felt disjointed and failed to connect emotionally with audiences. Mitchum himself reportedly grew frustrated during production, feeling the material wasn't living up to its potential. By the time the film hit theaters, the studio had lost confidence and provided minimal marketing support. Audiences stayed away in droves, and the film couldn't recoup its production costs. The most telling sign of this film's complete failure? Even dedicated war film enthusiasts today rarely mention The Angry Hills. It's faded into such obscurity that finding a copy to watch requires serious dedication. The studio executives who greenlit this expensive mistake quickly buried it in their catalogs, hoping everyone would forget it ever existed. And for the most part, they did. On paper, This Earth Is Mine seemed like a guaranteed success. Rock Hudson and Gene Simmons, two of Hollywood's most bankable stars, headlining a sweeping drama about California's wine country, filmed in gorgeous Technicolor with lush vineyard settings. The studio spared no expense, showcasing the beautiful Napa Valley landscapes and filling the screen with opulent production design. Yet somehow, audiences collectively shrugged. Despite Claude Rains and Dorothy McGuire rounding out an impressive cast, the film struggled to find its audience. Critics gave mixed reviews, with many finding the family melodrama overwrought and the pacing sluggish. Hudson and Simmons had chemistry, but the script gave them little to work with beyond standard melodramatic conflicts. The vineyard setting, which had seemed so promising, ultimately felt like a novelty that couldn't sustain interest for the full running time. After a disappointing opening weekend, word of mouth didn't improve, and This Earth Is Mine quickly disappeared from theaters. The studio had invested heavily in production, expecting returns that never materialized. Today, this failed drama sits forgotten in film history, remembered only by the most dedicated fans of its stars. When Carroll Baker was cast in The Miracle, studio executives had high hopes. Baker had become a controversial star after her provocative performance in Baby Doll, and casting her in a religious drama seemed like a calculated risk that might pay off with both publicity and profits. The film, set in 19th century Spain, told the story of a novice nun who falls in love with a soldier and leaves the convent. From the start, the production faced challenges. Religious groups expressed concern about the portrayal of a nun abandoning her vows, while others worried the film wouldn't be controversial enough to draw audiences. The studio tried to walk a fine line, creating marketing materials that hinted at scandalous content while assuring religious viewers the film was ultimately respectful. This confused messaging led to a marketing disaster. Religious viewers stayed away, concerned the film would be disrespectful, while audiences seeking drama or controversy found the film too tame. Critics savaged the production, calling it neither fish nor fowl, not reverent enough to be inspirational, not daring enough to be provocative. The box office results were devastating, with The Miracle failing to recoup even half its production budget. Today, it's barely remembered even among classic film enthusiasts, a cautionary tale of trying to please everyone and ultimately pleasing no one. Few box office bombs have vanished as completely as The Big Fisherman, a biblical epic about Simon Peter with a staggering $4 million budget that only earned $3 million, a catastrophic loss in $1959. What makes this failure particularly interesting is that Walt Disney's Buena Vista Distribution handled the film, though Disney himself was reluctant to be associated with it, fearing exactly the financial disaster that ultimately occurred. The film was based on a novel by Lloyd C. Douglas, who also wrote The Robe, which had been a huge hit. Studio executives hoped lightning would strike twice, but they miscalculated badly. Howard Keel, better known for musicals, was cast as Simon Peter after John Wayne turned down the role. The production values were impressive, with the film shot in Super Panavision 70mm, but the 3-hour running time tested audience patience. Despite being nominated for 3 Academy Awards for its technical achievements, The Big Fisherman struggled to connect with viewers. Its pacing was glacial, and the story deviated significantly from biblical accounts, confusing religious viewers. The film has become so obscure it's never received an official home video release, making it virtually impossible for modern audiences to see it. Its financial failure was so complete that many of the industry veterans who came out of retirement to work on it never made another film. When a film stars both Gary Cooper and Charlton Heston at the heights of their careers, how could it possibly fail? Yet, The Wreck of the Mary Deare did exactly that, becoming one of 1959's most puzzling box office disasters. The maritime adventure about a disgraced merchant officer trying to clear his name after his ship is deliberately scuttled seemed perfect for these rugged leading men. What few people realize is that Alfred Hitchcock was originally attached to direct the film. After working on the script with writer Ernest Lehman, Hitchcock concluded the story would make for a boring courtroom drama and abandoned the project. Instead, he made North by Northwest, which became one of his most successful films. Meanwhile, The Mary Deare proceeded with director Michael Anderson, but the production was plagued by Cooper's declining health. Though not diagnosed with cancer until the following year, Cooper was frequently ill, causing expensive production delays. Critics actually received the film well, but audiences didn't show up in sufficient numbers. The movie's troubled production had driven up costs, making it nearly impossible to turn a profit even with decent attendance. Today, despite its impressive stars and solid craftsmanship, The Wreck of the Mary Deare is rarely screened or discussed, a costly footnote in the careers of everyone involved. With Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster, and Laurence Olivier headlining The Devil's Disciple, the studio had assembled perhaps the most impressive cast of 1959. This adaptation of George Bernard Shaw's play about the American Revolution seemed poised for both critical acclaim and commercial success. How could audiences resist 3 of Hollywood's biggest stars sharing the screen? Yet the Revolutionary War setting proved a tough sell. American audiences had shown little interest in this historical period, and international viewers were even less enthusiastic. The production itself was troubled, with reported clashes between the stars and director Guy Hamilton. Lancaster and Douglas, who had previously collaborated successfully, allegedly grew frustrated with production delays and script issues. Despite generally positive reviews praising the performances, audiences stayed away. The film's theatrical satire and wordy Shaw dialogue didn't translate to exciting trailers, and marketing efforts failed to convey what the movie was actually about. The substantial production budget, inflated by the salaries of 3 major stars, meant The Devil's Disciple needed to be a blockbuster just to break even. Instead, it became one of United Artists' biggest disappointments of the year, a prestigious failure that demonstrated star power alone couldn't guarantee success. When Yul Brynner and Deborah Kerr reunited after their success in The King and I, expectations were sky high for The Journey. This Cold War drama about a group of Westerners trying to escape Hungary during the 1956 Soviet invasion seemed timely and important. With director Anatol Litvak bringing European sensibilities to the production, studio executives anticipated both commercial success and awards consideration. The production spared no expense, filming on location in Austria near the Hungarian border to create authenticity. But as costs mounted, early screenings suggested audiences found the story too slow and the political elements too complex. Cold War tensions were real and frightening in 1959, but viewers seemingly preferred their entertainment to offer escape rather than reflection on current events. Critics were divided, with some praising the film's serious approach to recent history and others finding it ponderous and preachy. Audiences largely stayed away, and The Journey became another costly failure in a year full of them. Brynner's career maintained momentum, but the film represented a setback for Kerr and contributed to her gradually declining star power in the 1960s. Today, even as interest in Cold War history has revived, The Journey remains largely forgotten. Mario Lanza's final film, For the First Time, represents one of Hollywood's most poignant failures. Once hailed as the new Caruso, with a voice that sold millions of records, Lanza's career had been in decline following disputes with MGM. This European co-production, featuring Lanza as an opera singer who falls in love with a deaf woman, was designed to restore his fading star power. Filmed in various European locations, including Capri, Salzburg, and Berlin, the production showcased Lanza's magnificent voice in a variety of classical and popular selections. But behind the scenes, Lanza's health was deteriorating due to his struggles with weight, alcohol, and prescription medications. Though only 38, he looked much older on screen, a shadow of the vibrant performer who had earlier captivated audiences. When For the First Time was released, reviews were surprisingly positive, with critics noting Lanza's still impressive vocal performances. But audiences had moved on, and the film failed commercially. Even more tragically, Lanza died of a heart attack just weeks after the film's premiere in October 1959, never knowing his final performance would eventually gain appreciation from opera enthusiasts. The film's failure seemed to confirm Hollywood's belief that the era of the musical was ending, a costly miscalculation that would be disproven in later years. The Last Voyage stands as one of 1959's most innovative failures, a disaster film that lost MGM $551,000 despite groundbreaking special effects. The story of a sinking ocean liner starred Robert Stack and Dorothy Malone, both popular television and film performers. What made the production unique was director Andrew L. Stone's decision to film on an actual ocean liner, the retired French ship Ile-de-France. In an unprecedented move, the production actually flooded portions of the ship and partially sank it during filming. The French line, which had owned the vessel, was horrified when they learned of these plans, attempting to block the rental, but ultimately relenting when MGM agreed not to identify the ship by its original name. This authenticity came at a steep price, making the film's budget difficult to recoup, even with decent attendance. Critics praised the realistic disaster sequences and tension, but audiences in 1959 weren't yet primed for the disaster film genre that would later become hugely popular in the 1970s. The Last Voyage was simply ahead of its time, pioneering techniques that would later become standard in the genre. Today, the film has developed a small cult following among special effects enthusiasts who appreciate its practical effects achievement, but its initial failure was another blow in MGM's difficult year. Gary Cooper and Rita Hayworth headlined They Came to Cordura, a psychological western that proved far too dark and complex for 1959 audiences. The film, set during the 1916 punitive expedition into Mexico, explored themes of cowardice, heroism, and moral ambiguity, hardly the straightforward cowboy adventure viewers expected from the genre. The production was physically demanding, with filming in the harsh desert conditions of St. George, Utah. Cooper, whose health was already failing though his cancer diagnosis was still months away, struggled with the challenging shoot. Rita Hayworth, once Hollywood's glamour queen, was cast against type as a hardened woman accused of treason, a role that required her to appear haggard and worn. A brave acting choice, but one that disappointed fans expecting her typical glamour. Critics were divided, with some praising the film's serious approach to the Western genre, and others finding it pretentious and slow-moving. Audiences largely rejected its complex moral questions and downbeat tone. Columbia Pictures had invested heavily in the production, expecting Cooper and Hayworth to deliver their usual box office magic. Instead, They Came to Cordura became one of the year's notable failures, though it has since gained appreciation among Western aficionados who value its psychological complexity. Frank Sinatra and Steve McQueen should have been an unbeatable combination in Never So Few, a World War II action film set in Burma. Sinatra was at the height of his film stardom after From Here to Eternity and The Man with the Golden Arm, while McQueen was an exciting rising star. The production had everything going for it: exotic locations, big-name stars, and a substantial budget from MGM. Behind the scenes, however, trouble was brewing. The film was originally set to star Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., but after Davis made comments about Sinatra's relationship with Lauren Bacall, an angry Sinatra had Davis removed from the production. McQueen, as the replacement, seized the opportunity, delivering a scene-stealing performance that helped launch his rise to superstardom. Despite the star power and impressive action sequences, the film received mixed reviews. Critics found the romantic subplot between Sinatra and Gina Lollobrigida unconvincing, and the war story elements sometimes confusing. Audiences were moderately interested, but not in the numbers MGM needed to recoup its substantial investment. Never so few ended up losing money, contributing to MGM's difficult financial year. Today, it's primarily remembered as an early showcase for McQueen's magnetic screen presence rather than for any particular artistic achievement. Perhaps no film of 1959 was as troubled as Solomon and Sheba, a biblical epic that was struck by tragedy when its star, Tyrone Power, died of a heart attack during filming. Power collapsed while filming a dueling scene with George Sanders, leaving the production in chaos. After considering abandoning the project entirely, producers decided to continue with Yul Brynner taking over Power's role as King Solomon. This reshoot necessity added enormously to the already substantial $6 million budget, equivalent to over $57 million today. The pressure was immense on director King Vidor and the cast to salvage the production. Gina Lollobrigida, as the Queen of Sheba, was reportedly distraught over Power's death, but professionally continued her performance opposite the new lead. Critics were largely unimpressed with the final result, finding it ponderous and lacking the emotional impact of earlier biblical epics. Audiences were initially curious, drawn by the publicity surrounding Power's death, but word of mouth was poor. While the film eventually earned back its production costs through international distribution and television rights, its theatrical run was considered a disappointment given its enormous budget and expectations. Solomon and Sheba marked the end of King Vidor's directorial career, a sad conclusion to a distinguished filmography. The most fascinating box office disaster of 1959 is undoubtedly Disney's Sleeping Beauty, a film that lost approximately $900,000 upon release, but eventually became one of the studio's most beloved classics. At $6 million, an astronomical sum for an animated feature in the 1950s, it was the most expensive Disney film produced up to that time, reflecting Walt Disney's perfectionist vision and artistic ambition. The production was a massive undertaking that took nearly a decade to complete. Artists created a distinctive medieval art style inspired by Gothic tapestries and stained glass windows, departing from the softer look of earlier Disney films. The studio also invested in new technology, making Sleeping Beauty the first animated film photographed in the Super Technorama 70 widescreen process with 6-channel stereophonic sound. Despite these innovations and the film's artistic achievements, contemporary audiences and critics gave it a lukewarm reception. Many found the art style too stylized and the characters less engaging than those in Snow White or Cinderella. The box office failure had profound consequences for Disney animation. Walt Disney himself, deeply disappointed by the public's reaction, began losing interest in animation altogether, focusing more on live-action films and theme parks. The animation department suffered massive layoffs, and Disney wouldn't attempt another fairy tale adaptation for 30 years until The Little Mermaid in 1989. The ultimate irony is that Sleeping Beauty has since been recognized as an artistic masterpiece. Through re-releases, home video, and merchandise, it eventually became enormously profitable and influenced generations of animators. What was once a catastrophic financial failure is now considered one of Disney's crown jewels, proving that sometimes the most significant commercial disasters can become the most enduring artistic triumphs. The box office failures of 1959 changed Hollywood forever. Studios became more cautious with budgets, stars lost the guaranteed drawing power they once commanded, and entire genres fell out of favor. Yet, from these financial ashes, valuable lessons emerged that would shape filmmaking for decades to come. Perhaps the most profound lesson is that initial commercial failure doesn't necessarily determine a film's ultimate legacy. As Sleeping Beauty demonstrates, sometimes a film that loses money can still win hearts. It just might take 30 years longer than expected.